everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes. Hope everybody's doing all right. I'm a little concerned about this report that the music sounds funny. Did the music sound funny to anyone other than Kyle? Do I sound funny? Well, let me rephrase that. Do I sound more funny than usual? Because I understand that I sound funny, but like, is the audio quality okay? Can you hear me? It does a bit warped at the beginning of the loop. Everything sounds fun. Shane, color balance is way off. I know what color that shirt should be, and you're blue. I'm not blue, but I don't want to be blue. Is the camera gone wonky? I'm blue, dabba dee dabba da, dabba dee dabba da. I knew a guy that I was in high school with that was absolutely convinced to the point of being like fighting mad that the lyrics to that song were "I'm blue, if I was green I would die." Yeah, if I were green I would die. Yeah. And he was absolutely certain that those were the lyrics and just got so mad. Of course, I'm dating myself because that means I was in high school when that song came out. And also, this was so far back in time that it wasn't easy to just Google everything. Is that who I think it was? Potentially, but I don't know who you might think it was. It wasn't your nemesis. It was not Garth. How about that? It was neither Garth nor Red. Using secret code words for people now. We're talking in crypto stuff. I was just starting or already in high school. Have you seen the music video for that song? It's bananas. Yes, early computer generated graphics stuff. It looks like I was trapped inside of a 1990s video game. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy stuff. I get what you're saying. I do look a little bit blue. It might be the light reflecting. Maybe I just need to back away from the light source a little bit. Maybe my natural radiant skin is interfering with the background lighting. I don't know. White balance? Yeah, it's probably something in the white balance. I don't really feel like mucking around with it right now. If I get off a stream and it still looks funny, I might play with it then. But if I try to do anything with it right now, there is absolutely the better than zero chance that the whole thing would collapse upon us like a giant house of cards, and I would end up having to restart the stream, and in doing so say lots of nasty words to the computer, which might then offend it, which might mean that OBS wouldn't work for the rest of the night. So it is what it is, and we'll roll with it. You can be otherworldly today. We're talking about astrology. Ah, that's true. We are talking about astrology. Indeed. I'm so glad you got to be here, Steph Anomaly. I know that this was kind of your thing. Not that other people weren't excited. Clearly it won. But I know that you've been really like gung-ho about this one. So I'm glad that you got to be here. I hope everybody's doing all right. How is everybody? How is your world? I am excited. I feel like we need the little Doge meme somewhere. Much excite, very star. Your world is flat. Interesting. I did not know that. Had a good time in Yellowstone. That's great to hear, Fid. I hope that it was relaxing. I hope that time away from the hectic life of normal day was good. feel free to share pictures if you have any and you want to share them on the Discord. Throw that stuff on there. Let us vicariously appreciate natural beauty from your photos. Hey, Grithar, how's it going? All the science indicates very flat. Nice. You had a good day, except your cat stole your last chicken nugget, and now you're sad. That is a legit reason to be sad. I don't frequently eat chicken nuggets, but when I do, I know exactly how many are in the box, and I mentally prepare myself how to get through all of them and enjoy each one of them in order. And were I to lose one, that would be a tumultuous situation. You will. Lots of good stuff to share. Awesome. The last one is the best one. Yeah, you get to like scrape up all of the rest of the sauce and you get like this like turbo nugget sauce because you've tried to be sparing with all of your previous dips, but now you have way too much left over and it's just like honey mustard all over. Yeah, I ate dinner and I'm already getting hungry again. Well, cats are buttholes, so you shouldn't be too surprised. Turbo nugget. Exactly. Turbo Nugget reminds me of a Scandinavian black metal band that I know called Turbo Negro. I don't know them personally. I was exposed to their music by a guy who played black metal that used to work at a coffee shop that I used to work with. He's an interesting guy. But I got exposed to a lot of death metal and black metal and very, very angry stuff with double bass pedals and people being very angry and yelling into microphones. I had a phase. It's not bad. I don't dislike it. It's just not always my thing. I like understanding the words. And I thought I was all edgy listening to Japanese metal all these years. Yeah, the Scandinavians, they get pretty hard. Pretty good over here. Bought the Murdeer original from Jeremy Bastion. Oh, wow. That's awesome. You've been to a concert with Turbo Negro. Not really black metal, though. Okay, well, I know they were loud, and they played very quickly. So my genre descriptors might be off. But that's a really interesting thing that you know who I'm talking about, Joey. Because I don't think I've ever met another person that has ever heard of them before. It was me, Ryan, the guy who exposed me to them, and now you. So there's this weird trifecta thing. Also, has your artwork arrived? I hope that it has. And I feel like I'm missing all of the Jeremy Bastion stuff because I didn't even know Jeremy Bastion was selling originals. Not that I could probably afford one of his originals. Not saying that his originals are priced too much. They're priced exactly where they should be, if not a little bit low. I just don't have the funds to afford one. Nothing in the mail yet? See, that stinks because Grethar got his and I sent them on the same day. So I hope that is not a bad portent. So we will cross our fingers and hope. Anybody got anything? Anybody want to share anything? Any news? Any good news? Anybody want to share good news other than had a great... Well, I mean, you can elaborate on the great Yellowstone adventure. I'm glad you got to go do that. They're pretty big in Norway. Vocalist is very well known. I knew that they were Scandinavian, and I wanted to say they were either Swedish or Norwegian. So, good to hear. By the way, Twitch does not like your the name of that band. And I know why it doesn't like it, but it doesn't care very much for the name of the band. So, there we are. He had one bigger and a bunch of smaller ones. The Murdeer and the rest of the bunch were 4.5 by 6 inches and were 125. That's actually not bad for a Jeremy Bastion original. That's really good. I still don't think I could have swung that right now. I might have been able to convince my wife that it was a birthday present. But I've been trying to convince Jeremy to do a commission for me. He did a piece that got sold at Heroes Con last year that was amazing of Swamp Thing. And I've been trying to convince him, but he has a humongous following over in Europe, especially a bunch of French collectors. He's got a huge following in Europe and makes a lot of money selling original stuff over there. So I do not have anything against him making money from people over there. And here's little old Piddle and me from the States going, please, sir, would you draw me a Swamp Thing? I hold nothing against Jeremy Bastian. Jeremy Bastian, by the way, great artist, nice guy. He's on Instagram. You should go follow him. If somebody wants to go dig up his links, you can post them. I don't really care. He's a great dude. Incredibly talented artist. So there's that. All right. Enough hemming and hawing. Let's talk astrology. So when I first kind of got the news, when you all voted on astrology, I really didn't know how I was going to handle this. It's a very, very big topic, and it has a lot of different avenues to sort of run down. There are rabbits to chase aplenty. So my biggest concern wasn't finding enough material to talk about. It was trying to mush things down enough so that I could make, hey, Bubba World Comics, thanks for the raid. And I'm wondering why my alerts aren't playing right now. Hey, alert box, why aren't you doing the raid thing? Oh, alert box. Streamlabs is being silly. Welcome, Bubba World Comics, and friends from Bubba World Comics. I'm Shane. This is Adventures in History. Feel free to make yourself at home. I apologize for my alert not playing. I don't know what's going on with Streamlabs tonight. I know what I can do, though. I bet I can manually trigger one for you. How about that? We'll do it that way. I don't like for people not to get recognition. How was your stream, Bubba? To let everybody know, Bubba World Comics, you're leaving your pants on, making yourself at home. Okay. Yes, pants are appreciated. Had a lovely stream. Very nice. Feel free to share anything if you have some photos of what you were working on. Also, if you... Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so the follow noise is working, but the raid noise is not working. Interesting. Irkala, see? Welcome. Let me see if I can trigger this raid thing, because I just want to see if it'll work now. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you were here? Okay, so the test works. I just don't know why it didn't trigger when Bubba came in. Hey, David Peterson. Irkalak. Thank you for the correction. I try. I fail. I am human. I'll get it right next time. Irkalak. Awesome. In the end, you got the 2019 sketchbook, the Art of Coloring book, and the original. Excelente. So, to let everybody that might be new to the channel know, my name is Shane. I teach history for a living in college. I figured out over the course of the COVID world that I could use this great platform to reach my students, and I liked it so much I figured I might as well just roll on into doing it for fun. I talk about history. I throw in really bad puns. We do pop cultural references. We make nerd jokes. We have fun. We goof off, and we talk about history because I really don't think that history has to be boring. I really think that a lot of the negative impact that history has had in people's pasts comes from teachers that are really disinterested or don't really know the subject or don't really care to teach very much. So I've sort of made it my goal to change the overall impression of history and do our thing. What? Entertained? What happened to I'm Brian? Actually, he had it right the first time, but I don't care how anyone pronounces it, although I do prefer it to be pronounced Her Royal Highness. Okay. So Irkala C is the correct pronunciation. I don't know if I could remember Her Royal Highness. I'll try to make the mental connection. It doesn't, I should shut up. I was trying to make a joke and it just wasn't going to happen. Irk. All right. We'll go with what? Okay. You've been pronouncing it wrong all this time. Oh my. So tonight is a viewer request episode. Every other Tuesday we do viewer requests where we have suggestions that come from the audience and we have votes and I do whatever gets sort of handed to me. On Thursday nights, we do history in chronological order. We started at the beginning with what makes a human, and we've made it up to about 500 BC so far. So come back by Thursday. We'll be talking about Chinese philosophy and the different schools of thought during the 100 schools of thought. Joby Lasagna, I feel like I have a problem with the moon. Is there any correlation between my aura and the moon? Maybe. Perhaps. I don't claim to be an astrologer myself. Tonight's discussion was the history of astrology and where it came from. And I was actually just kind of getting into the discussion of how I tried to wrap my mind around talking about where astrology came from and how everything ended up being the way that it is. So let's look at some wood carvings from Bubba. Nice, got a deer skull going on there. Okay. Is this a bowler hat? Is this perhaps Clockwork Orangey? Maybe. You love astrology? Well, you have come to the right place, my friend. Astrology comes from astrophysics. There we are. I piss yourself when there's a full moon. How can you explain this? I can't, my friend. Cover of a novel inspired. Okay. I was thinking it looked sort of like the group that the bad group from Clockwork Orange that has, I think they're called the Moogs. They have the bowler hats and they have the little stuff on their eye painted. So there we are. You might be in the wrong stream. I am not here to tell droogs. That's what it is. I am not here to tell fortunes. We're talking about history. Astrovans came from Flint. There we are. Chevy astrology. Okay, I'm sure that a lot of astrology has happened in the back of a van at one time or another. There was the 60s. So there we are. Everybody go check out Bubbles' link. Give them a follow. Share some love. Spread it around. All right. So what I decided that I was going to do to approach this was to talk about where our version of astrology came from. And when I say our, what I'm talking about is mostly Western astrology. I feel like that was sort of the spirit of what people were asking for anyway. I don't mean to diminish or take away from any of the Eastern astrology schools. We've got a couple of mentions of stuff from China and some Japan and some India stuff. but I have created a bit of a timeline that goes from the very, very beginning of stuff roughly until the scientific revolution. When the Western world started really digging into science and they figured out that there wasn't a lot of scientific link between certain things like causes and effects, it was hard for astrology to hang on. Actually, the Astro wasn't produced here in Michigan. It was produced in Baltimore. Okay. It's my attempt to get all the things back to your hometown, Flint. Yeah. So David's a Flintophile. And is always suggesting that we do the history of Flint. For our new friends, by the way, I should do this. Go check out David Peterson's channel. He is the author and illustrator of a comic book called Mouse Guard. He also has a lot of other works. He's illustrated Wind in the Willows. He does a lot of fantasy artwork stuff. Go give him a check out. He streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the early afternoons. I'm sorry, late afternoons, early evenings. Give him a follow. Great chat. You'll run back into me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there we are. Babylonia, Syria, and ancient Greece, pretty much. Falsifying information, shame, David, shame. The stars say so, and so do we all. So say we all, right? I missed Arcadians. Tell me if I should shower today or not. Signs point to yes. You might not have to wash your hair every day. Usually, from what I learned as I was growing up and trying to date, hair washing only tends to correlate on days where I'd like to go out with somebody. So, I didn't ask you out, so you probably don't need to wash your hair tonight. Okay, doke. So let's start doing so every day. Oh. Okay, let's talk about some astrology. And we've got to start off with a few sort of understood statements. So for the rest of the conversation, we need to talk about some sort of overarching rules or guidelines that are going to be in place for our conversation tonight. First off, we have to understand that astrology and astronomy were basically the same thing for most of human history. Now, since that scientific revolution, and especially since the Enlightenment, astronomy and astrology have taken different routes. But for the vast majority of recorded human history, they're the same thing. So, people staring at the stars and trying to understand the motions of the planets and the stars and the heavenly bodies, that today would probably be considered astronomy. But back in the ancient world, there's no difference between astronomy and astrology. These people were looking at the skies, trying to gain factual knowledge, but also trying to gain what we might consider like portents or omens or some sort of guidance or wisdom. But they had to do the studying to get that. So astronomy and astrology for the entire discussion tonight are going to be interchangeable. It's not the same now, but it was the same for most of human history. Another thing that we have to understand is that the ancient people, prior to about the late 1800s, and I would even push this up into the early 1900s, they knew a lot more about the sky than we do. Some of us live in cities that are big enough where when we walk outside and look at the sky, we can't even see stars because of light pollution. Some of us live in rural enough areas that we can get some stars. But until you've been really, really far out in the middle of nowhere to a place that doesn't have any natural light, where there aren't geographic like hills or things to block you, and there aren't trees to block you, and you can get a full horizon to horizon view of the sky, you really don't know what's out there. And I've only seen this a couple of times in my life, and it's been very impactful for me. Comets bad, eclipses also bad. You can't see stars most nights, but I used to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and there are so many stars. Right. So we have to understand that for these ancient people, looking up at the sky was much more important to them, and they were getting a lot different experience than we are. I encourage everybody to try to go out somewhere that is so far away that there is no natural light pollution, where you can get a true vision of horizon to horizon darkness, where you can see all of the stars, you can see the bands of the Milky Way, you can see the planets. It's dramatically different than what most of us really experience. And it's all inspiring, and it really puts a lot of different things in perspective. But this is something that these ancient people experienced on a daily basis. And we don't. Well, most of us don't. So their relationship with the cosmos is just different than ours. Come visit you in northern Michigan. There we are. You start to realize there are more stars than there are spaces between them. Right, that's what I'm talking about. In light pollution now. It's just a different experience. So try to remember that when these ancient people are looking up at the sky and trying to get stuff out of this, they're not going on the same sort of information that we are. Their set of data is different. So we also have to remember that they had a lot less stuff to do at night. Since the invention of electricity, hey Bubba, since the invention of electricity, our active hours have greatly expanded. In the ancient world, you weren't going to stay up until, 10 o'clock at night watching some dude run his mouth about history on Twitch. You would probably be asleep because candles were expensive. Fire meant that you had to chop down wood, and there wasn't really much else to do in the dark anyway. My grandma used to say that nothing good happens after 2 a.m. I think there's wisdom in that. You moved here from Las Vegas. The first time I stared up at the night sky, you felt incredibly small. Right. And it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to get that level of perspective on things. But we also have to remember that same small feeling that you might have felt there, that I felt the first time I got to see it, is what these people are walking around under all the time. So it's true. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Also, Waffle House isn't good until after 2 a.m. So what you're doing here is you're creating a pie chart where Waffle House isn't good. And I don't know if I like that or not. Or perhaps it's a waffle chart. I'll leave that one alone. Anyway, so people paid more attention to the stars. People had different experiences with the stars. And just because they had less technology does not mean that they had less knowledge. I would take a bet that somebody roughly my age from 20,000 years ago would have infinitely more knowledge about specific star locations, how to navigate using just the stars, the time of the day based on just looking up out of the sky, the rough time of the year, than I would. I rely on technology all the time to tell me what time it is, to tell me what day it is, to tell me what month it is. I don't have to use that same level of knowledge because these people are living in a world that is much different than us. They have to use that knowledge. They have to have that kind of stuff. Ironically, 1 or 2 a.m. was around the time people would get up for an hour or so to socialize and then go back to sleep. Yeah, back in the old Victorian days and England stuff, get up at midnight, hang out for a couple hours, and then go on back to bed. Waffle House Venn diagram, there we are. Looks at the sky according to the star. I see it's daytime. Yeah, there's only one of them out there, and it's a big one, and it's like right there. Right? So let's think about all this stuff while we're going through. And we have to start asking, at what point can we tell that these ancient people really had put the knowledge together to understand this stuff? And the answer is, we really don't know. If I had to guess, I would say that ancient humans understood this stuff a long time ago. But the level of physical culture that they had was not sufficient enough for them to leave behind a lot of evidence for us. So our understanding of them is based on the artifacts that they make and then our interpretation of those artifacts. So we're looking at a carbon copy of something and then trying to make the original intent known from it. So it's not always easy. But we do have some stuff that's pretty neat. So let me share an image with you of this thing. And you go, what is that thing? It's a rock. So this is what's known as the Aubry-Blanchard fragment. That's right. Blanchard. It's Blanchard. That will be important for some people. But we see a pattern here of dots. Woo! Look at the dots. They're pretty. But here's the thing. They're in these loops. And the number is important because it turns out that based on these loops and these lines, this number is the same as how many days it would take the moon to go from full to new moon and then back. So theoretically, based on some people's interpretation of this artifact, this is one of the oldest 2-month calendars that we've ever discovered. Now, we don't know. It could have been a kid who had picked up a rock and was playing with it and made some holes in it. So it's a moon cycle calendar. That's what some people think. They think it is a lunar cycle calculator, basically, so that you could keep up with what number day it was so that you would know the distance between one full moon and the new moon, and then from the new moon to the next full moon. How old is it? That's a great question. It radiocarbon dates to 30,000 BC. 30,000 BC. That's friggin' old. Now, there's a lot of debate about this. A lot of people say it's nothing. A lot of people say, oh no, this is totally a thing. This is absolutely the thing. It is the proof. We know it. It's obvious. The fact that it's even curved lets us know that this is like the changing of something because the moon curves through the sky because of the tilt of the earth and the place that it rises and sets. This is evidence. We don't know. It's called Aubry-Blanchard, if you want to Google it and learn more. Moon cycle calendars are the oldest system, you think? We got the moon plus sun calendars and finally the sun calendars sometime around agriculture. Right. Spoilers. So, is this the oldest bi-monthly lunar calendar that we have? Maybe. Are there lots of questions about it? Yes. Was it a cool picture to show and get us thinking about stuff? Absolutely. So that's what I'm after. If I can get some little thought processes moving. So Aubry-Blanchard bone, 30,000 years ago or so. Interesting. So what about other stuff? Well, we have several other depictions that are a little bit newer. Still old, but a little bit newer. And let's look at some photos. So there's a bit of a photo dump here kind of at the beginning because I really like showing really, really old stuff. So this is a photo from the Lascaux caves in France. This is carbon dated to about 13,000 BC. So 15,000 years ago. And again, what we see are these patterns of dots and these curves. It's a horse eating raisins. Exactly. But if you count these, it ends up being the same number of dots as the lunar cycle. So could this be an early depiction of a lunar cycle with the horse perhaps being some constellation thing? Perhaps. Again, there's a lot of debate about this one. There's a lot of debate about a lot of this stuff. Let's look at another one. Let me zoom out so that I can go to the next one. This is from something called the Cueva de los Manos, the Cave of the Hands. This is from Argentina. Super old stuff. This is about 10,000 BC. But what we see right down here is this nice big red circle thing. Could that be the sun? A lot of people say, yes, this is the sun. And if it is the sun, this is one of the earliest depictions of the sun that exists in human history, being about 12,000 years old. Just to put that into perspective, at 12,000, there was no such thing as sedentary life. Everybody was still super hunter-gatherer. The happy character is the sun, right? So you're saying, okay, well, what about something that's, not just a painting that could be impressionistic? What about some conclusive, hard data, physical object proof? Well, I'm glad that you asked, because we have this thing. Oh, I got to zoom out again. I keep doing the zoom, and then I forget that I have to zoom out before I can go to the next picture. Don't be a jerk. There we go. Boom. What is that thing? Well, that thing is what's called the Nebra sky disk. This is a copper disk with burnished copper spots that show the sun and the moon and some sort of indication that there's movement of these two, and we've got some star patterns in the background. This is a little bit more clear. Like, this is evident they're talking about celestial objects. This guy is a lot newer. It only comes from 3,600 years ago. This is 1600 BC, which is really old. And if you remember us talking about metalworking, this would be one of the older copper items that we have from the very late Chalcolithic period. So there's a lot of old stuff. And people have clearly been looking at the sky for a long time and trying to figure out what's up there. Now, were all of those things what people say they are? Yeah, you can go check them out. I should type them. First one with the horse was Lascaux. Cueva de las Manos and Nebra. Where is it from? The Nebra sky disk came from Central Europe and was dug up. Oh man, there's so much fun stuff about that. It's very hotly debated itself. Some people think it's actually a fake. I'm pretty sure that one's legit. But interesting stuff there. So we have depictions, we have physical things that look like they're representing stars, but what's the practical application? How do we know that they're actually using these to study the stars? You can't take the picture from the Lascaux caves and put it up in the sky and go, oh, look, there's the moon moving around in this weird little circle. It could just be a bunch of dots, right? Even the Nebra sky disk, it doesn't correlate to anything, right? There's no physical application. It's not like you look through this thing and you put it at this part of the sky and it lines up all nice and even. There's not really any sort of practical application. It's just really neat stuff. It could just be, oh, look, there's a pretty thing. I like drawing pictures. But what about actual practical application stuff? And I'm glad you asked about that, because there's some really old stuff of that too. And yes, I did look up photos to show you. Like I said, there's a bit of a photo dump here at the beginning. So let's look at practical, physical application stuff where we know that people understood the archaeology. I'm sorry, the astrology of the thing. Archaeology is on my brain. What we're looking at right here is a place in Australia called Wurdi Yuong. Sorry I'm late. Wanted to make sure you got this in. And there's a colon. Is there a joke coming? Okay, so Wurdi Yuong. This is a rock formation.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Aww.
I'm Spartacus!
I am Spartacus.
Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. You're Spartacus. And thank you for the sub, my friend. Very much appreciated. We're all Spartacus. Everybody's Spartacus. So, by the way, this is Wurdi Yuong. Let's go back and look at the photo now. Thank you for the sub. I really appreciate it. I didn't mean to cut that off. So we have here a weird little rock formation that normally would just look like a really bad Wi-Fi symbol. Like, there's no signal here. But if you look down this line of standing stones that Aboriginal people in Australia set up, it lines up really nicely with the place that the sun rises on the summer solstice. And right down the middle of this rock formation, we have this kind of clump of larger rocks here. And it looks like, well, just so happens, the sun rises right here on the vernal equinox. And, well, check it out. You got to go to work. Catch you later. All right, tell Daria I said hello. There's a line over here, and guess what? Where does the sun rise on the winter solstice? Right over here. So we've got an ancient calendar that lets us know what time of the year it is based on the location of the sun rising over the horizon. And you go, okay, if this is in Australia, how does it try to kill you? That is a fair question. You're walking through the middle of the outback, and you trip over one of these boulders and knock your head on another one. So you're getting taken out by astrology. So you ask, how old is this guy? Well, this is dated to about 11,000 BC, which is, again, really honkin' old. This is, if the dating is correct, there is a little bit of argument about the dating of this site. I tend to believe it, but there is, I should be honest, I should say that there are some questions about the dating of the site. But if it is 11,000 years old, this would make it one of the most ancient human organized construction efforts on Earth. And it was designed to measure astrological events. There's another one, and I've mentioned this one before, so I get a little bit excited. This is one of my photos from Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe is located in Turkey. It is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites on Earth. It is a place where you see these circles, and there are dozens of these circles. Current estimates are that there are about 30-something circles that are pretty clearly defined, up to maybe even 50 of them that have not been completely excavated. But around these circles, you see these neat little T-pillars. All right, and a lot of these have really interesting carvings, and the location itself is a miraculous event based on history. But there has been some analysis lately that, guess what? These particular pillars that go around these circles aren't just randomly organized. It turns out they're lined up to particular astrological events. So not only are these people making these really cool, carvings with animals on them. I've got tons more pictures of this. I've shared some more in the past. Not only are they really neat pieces of architecture and artwork, they're actually arranged based on astrological signs. This is 10,000 BC. So, yeah, T pillars, not tooth pullers. T pillar. T pillar. What about some holes in the ground? Boom. How about this guy? So this location, and it's really hard to find photos of this particular site because they're still excavating it. This is a place in Scotland called the Warrenfield Pits. And these particular pits are dug in such a way that the moon and the sun line up with them based on particularly important astrological events. So during certain times of the year, like solstices or equinoxes, the sun and the moon are going to coordinate with particular holes here. And it even looks like, based on initial excavation, that some of these holes were moved a little bit to account for things like times of the year where, you know, the planet shifts and the poles tilt away from the Earth or closer to the Earth. So people actually not only built these, but then adjusted them to make sure that they were more accurate. Hey, adventure in. Pit diggers, a sworn enemy of mound builders. Well, the mound builders actually oriented a lot of their stuff based on the astrology stuff as well. The Warrenfield pits, by the way, about 8,000 BC. So we have practical application where people are building things that line up with the sun and the moon. So again, this is so far back in history that there aren't villages. I mean, maybe by the time Warrenfield Pits starts up, there are some early villages where people are living in sedentary lifestyles. But for the earlier two and those other couple of paintings that we looked at, this is so far before civilized culture. But these people still had some concept of understanding the world. They were still interested in what was going on around them. They still understood that there was a repeatable cycle to the seasons, that the sun and the moon weren't just random things that floated around in the sky, that they had predictable things that they could count on and rely on. This is really interesting stuff, and we can't discount these ancient people. I say this a lot on the channel. We have a tendency, or we have an ability. I don't know if ability is the right thing. Tendency might be the better word. Sometimes we have a tendency when we think about ancient people to just think that they're dumb. And this is partially because, again, I think history education has failed a lot of people. Not people failed history. I think history has failed people. But I think part of this is also because we get so used to technology that we think about not having it as a lack, right? Like, oh man, that guy doesn't even have a cell phone. What's up with that guy? Well, you know, maybe he doesn't need a cell phone. Not everybody has to have a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, does that mean you're dumb? No. Well, these people don't have electricity or science or organized, concepts like mathematics, but they understand repeatable occurrences. They are much more in tune with nature than we are. They're just as capable as we are. We just have fancier toys, right? They're going to think we're dumb in future history classes too. Yeah, they're going to be like, look, there's this one guy, as if I'm going to be remembered in history. Kids today are dumb without Google. And there we are. And see, that's the thing. Like, how much of our ability to recall information has become reliant on being able to look it up really quick on the internet. I know I find myself doing that sometimes too. I'll look something up and I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's neat. And then 3 weeks later I go, man, I know I looked that thing up, but I don't remember it. Because information is so easily grasped now, we don't necessarily appreciate it as much. But these people had to work for this stuff. But that's cool. So look up these things. Lots of neat things to go look up. If you want to know more. Would you like to know more? There's a weird movie reference. I don't know if you all caught that one or not. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Okay, so all of that stuff was in what we call prehistory, before we had writing. But then we come up with writing, and the world changes. I know that the internet is forever, but I would like to think that Flipper interrupting Godzilla and Mothra having a quiet argument at a fancy restaurant would eventually die. I don't think it ever will, though. So, what about writing? Well, when we start doing writing, we start coming up with stories and we start writing down stories. And guess what? Some of the first things that we write down are myths. And some of the first things that we associate with being deities are the sun and the moon. It's almost not even surprising that the things that get associated with deities first are things like the sun and the moon. So, what up with the sun and the moon? Let me show you some old sun gods. In Egypt, where's my photos? Ah, there we are. You got, oh, well, no, this is in Mesopotamia. This guy's name is Shamash. Shamash is the Sumerian sun god. He's also considered the king of the gods. Check it out. He's got neat little suns. Whoop, whoop. And he's got the cool hat. You got to have the cool hat if you're a Sumerian, right? But getting over to Egypt, guess what? They also have one too. And so I picked Sumeria and Egypt because they're the two oldest organized civilizations. The sun and the moon are the most powerful, awe-inspiring things they can have observed. They can control the world. Right. I can understand why. Exactly. So this is the Egyptian sun goddess. That's right. The original god of the sun was actually a goddess in Egyptian mythology. Ra is much later, who sort of takes over being the sun god. This is Wadjet, who is the original sun god of the Egyptians. That's right. And this thing right here, she's very frequently depicted with being a serpent with the solar disk either here on her head. Later versions would have the solar disk sort of imprinted upon the cobra hood. But if you have ever seen basically any statue of a pharaoh, and you know they have that weird little snake on their head, guess what? That is an object called a uraeus, and that is the depiction of Wadjet. So even though Ra becomes really, really big later on, Wadjet is still very much forefront, both literally and figuratively, in Egyptian mythology. Wadjet's pretty cool. Yeah, I like Wadjet a lot. Neat stories that go along with Wadjet. What about some moon? Boom! This is the Sumerian moon god, and his name is, wait for it, Sin. S-I-N. Yep. Kind of weird. Sin is an incredibly important moon god. This guy becomes so popular that he makes it out of the Bronze Age, well into the Iron Age. He makes it through to Roman times. He has an enormous temple at a place called Sumatar where people still go. Even in the early AD periods, like the 1st, 2nd century AD, people are still going to Sumatar to ask Sin for guidance from the moon god. This guy has worshippers for over 2,000 years. And I know that seems like, oh, big deal. But when you think about how frequently ancient gods and goddesses sort of go in and out of fashion, the fact that this guy stayed around for roughly 3,400 years is really friggin' impressive. And sneaking over to Egypt, we have, and I'm going to be very honest here, this is one of my favorites, this guy. This is Khonshu. Now, some of you will know why Khonshu is my favorite, and it's an ultimately nerdy reason. I will leave the chat to decide. Hey, Life of Mamba, how's it going? So, Khonshu is the Egyptian moon god. You can see the good old-fashioned moon here. Boom! Cashew? Khonshu. Here we go. So below us, we have first the sun gods, Shamash and Wadjet. Then we have Sin and Khonshu. These are our moon gods. You know, Gesundheit. You may share, dearest, if you would like. Khonshu is near and dear. One of my favorites. So, with the sun and the moon, we have predictable events that happen where the sun and the moon sort of cross each other in the sky. Of course, these are called eclipses. And the eclipses are going to be some of the most important solar and lunar moments, right? So, sun and moon. Oh, yeah. Very anime. Yeah, Sailor Moon. And Mercury and Venus and all of those other sailors. But these eclipses are going to be important because they are going to be seen as momentous occasions. They don't happen every day. They don't even happen every other day or even every other month. They're rare. So when they show up, things are different. Moon Knight is the avatar of Khonshu. You are correct. And I really like Khonshu. I liked Khonshu before I started reading Moon Knight comics, but I really like Moon Knight, one of my favorite Marvel characters. So, what's up with these eclipses? And when they do happen, they can blind you. Yeah, so you shouldn't look at them unless... Never mind, I won't go there. Okay, so where do we first hear about an eclipse? It's actually pretty far back in time. In China, in 2100 BC, we have a record that a couple of court astrologers were beheaded because they failed to predict an eclipse. And the emperors got very angry with them. You're the only person I've actually heard reference Moon Knight. I love me some Moon Knight. One of my favorite characters. I have read Moon Knight comics since I was able to start collecting them in the 80s, which was the cheesiest version of Moon Knight, by the way. I really like Moon Knight. Bubble World Comics loves Moon Knight. We're in good company. So, if we know that eclipses are a thing in 2100 BC, and we know that people are trying to predict them in 2100 BC, does that mean that people can predict them in 2100 BC? And the answer is, based on that one story, we can't tell. We don't know if they were trying to predict an eclipse and then it happened on the wrong day and they got killed, or if they were supposed to be predicting all eclipses and then one happened that they didn't mention and they got killed. But we can't prove that they were conclusively and definitely predicting eclipses. You have a few of the comics, but haven't been able to find many of them. Is a fab storyline, though. Yeah, absolutely. The stuff that got started up around 2007, 2008, around the time that Marvel was doing the first Civil War. It's the first storyline is called The Bottom. That version of Moon Knight is one of my favorites. What do we got right here? The Gothsicles. I'm almost afraid to open this. Squid Icarus. What am I looking at here? Moon Knight is cool. Very bad industrial song called Moon Knight is Cool. I'll give it a listen. I don't think I want to play it right now because my computer might literally crash. I'm occasionally getting the little red light flickering at me, meaning that I'm dropping frames. So I don't want to beat my... I don't want to beat my computer up, but I've got the tab open. I'll watch it after the stream. And welcome, Kelly. So what's the earliest reliable prediction of eclipses that we have? It goes back to about the 1st century of BC. So past the sun and the moon, what about the stars? Well, what about constellations? So the concept of a constellation is pretty old. If we go back to those Lascaux caves, some people think that there are portions of those dots in the Lascaux caves that are star clusters. that view is held by even a smaller percentage of people that think that the dots on the bottom are the moon cycles. So I can't say that we can conclusively say that the Lascaux claves have star clusters accurately depicted, but we do know that in Egypt, back around the 10th dynasty, which is really far back in Egypt, around the 2100s BC, that they started making star tables that would let you know the progression of certain constellations. And if you're going to ask if I have one, I do. I went and dug one up for you. Who was accurately predicting them in 100s BC? A couple of different groups. The Babylonians and the Chinese. So let's look at a star table. There's a good old Khonshu again. Boom. Now I know this looks kind of messy, and it's because it's over 4,000 years old. So give it a break. This is actually from the 11th dynasty, not the 10th dynasty. But what we have here are several depictions of what the Egyptians would have called constellations. And then down here at the bottom, we have all of these neat little measurements that would let you know roughly where the constellations would rise and fall and how long they would be up and down. And this big chart here corresponds with the nice big picture here. And this is a very old star table. Pretty good condition given the age. Yeah. That's the great thing about Egypt. When you bury stuff, it's super dry and it stays in really good condition, assuming people don't rob it and loot it and all of that stuff. But there we are. Now, the Egyptians are also going to... Well, I think I might hold that picture to a little bit later. Yeah, I think I'll hold it for a bit. So, we get constellations. What else is there up there really to worry about? What else are we looking for? I mean, let me get rid of the gods here. I think we're done with the gods. What about predicting the future? And I know that everybody was getting excited about when do we start predicting the future. Let's talk about predictions. Well, the predictions are almost as old. And again, remember, we said this at the beginning, that the concept of astrology and astronomy in this ancient period of time are the same thing. As far back as 2000 BC, in Babylon, we have something called the Enuma Anu Enlil. Enuma Anu Enlil. This is a collection of tablets. There are about 70 of them. And it is a gigantic list of astrological omens. Not Numa. I'm not going to do the Numa dance. If you can predict eclipses, why not lucky numbers? We're getting to lucky numbers. I'm glad that you mentioned that. In the Enuma Anu Enlil, which, by the way, you can read for free. If you Google that and the phrase full text at the end of it, you can read the whole thing. It's all kinds of omens. And it's like, if the sun rises after the third day of an eclipse, this is going to be a bad day. Or if the sky is black on the fifth day after the certain full moon thingy, it's going to be a good day. Lots of omens and astrological predictions. And again, this is 2000 BC. So it's 4,000 years old. The same date roughly as that star table. So these people were already looking for some sort of guidance from the stars. A good day! I wish I could have a prediction for a good day. The world has been grinding me down slowly but surely, and the bright spot of my days have become hanging out with my wife and hanging out with you all on Twitch. Everything else is kind of dark. I'm doing all right. Don't freak out about me. It's just a patch, and eventually we'll get COVID under control, and I'll be able to do things like, I don't know, travel again. I'm so itchy. Gotta go travel. Anyway, I do like you guys. But it is important for us to remember that just because we know constellations and just because we predict the future, that constellations don't necessarily predict a future, which is the title of the stream tonight. Constellation does not imply causation, which is a bit of a pun on a logical statement, but I thought it was funny. So, what about these weather things? If we know what's going on in the sky, and we know that the sky stuff has effect on weather patterns, can we predict things like the good times to plant crops? And the answer is yes, we can. And we have farmers' almanacs that tell you the best days to plant, the best times to do this stuff, the good times for this, all the stuff that a modern almanac would have. We have those going all the way back to the reign of Ramesses the Great in 1270 BC. So the farmer's almanac that you thought Ben Franklin came up with, he copied that. That was not a new idea. Poor Richard's almanac was a copy of ideas that were 4,000 years older than that. Sorry, friends. He did put neat little wisdom statements in the back of it, and you always assumed those almanacs had some tie into this. They do! Because to understand when to plant and when the rain is going to come and when the floods are going to come, you can use the predictability of nature. You use the farmer's almanac. Well, you're using something that's probably 4,000 plus years old. Of course, it's going to be regionalized and different for where we live, but the idea of it, once you know that it can be done, that's the important thing, right? So let's talk about those good old lucky days and horoscopes. Well, it turns out that the Babylonians were pretty big on that too. And they have lots and lots of records about people's birthdays. And they started doing these sort of like long, kind of arcing horoscopes that would let you know when good periods of life would be and when bad periods of life would be based on where your stars are and the planets are and stuff like that. But also, just, is today going to be a good day? And the Romans picked this up and ran with it. The Romans would go so far as to even shut down business. There were groups of people in the Roman world whose job it was to watch for omens and interpret things. These are called haruspices, or haruspices. And at any given point, if they saw a celestial omen, they could run into the middle of the city and basically shut down all operations. They could stop any vote going on. They could stop buying and selling of goods that day. They could shut down the entire public part of the Roman Forum because people were super, super, superstitious. And they didn't want to do stuff that would make the gods angry. And the sun and the moon are a direct relationship with the gods. So if you see an omen and it's like, oh, today's a bad day, you got to go shut everything down. How do you spell that? How do I spell what? T-H-A-T. That? Or are you trying to spell haruspex? Haruspex. Is that what you're after? It's a great Latin word. They were superstitious. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. I always like throwing that in. Haruspics, by the way, were people that read auspices. This is where we get the word auspicious from. And the way that you read an auspices, or read something and determined whether or not it was auspicious, usually involved killing a goat and looking at the goat's liver and checking out spots on the liver. So next time you go to a graduation ceremony or a wedding and someone goes, "Today is an auspicious day," yell out from the background, "Did you look at a goat?" Nobody will get it, but you can giggle to yourself. Poor goat. You could also observe the eating patterns of the sacred chickens, which was a real thing in the ancient Roman world. Or you could stare at the sky. Yep. Gotta read the auspices if you're a haruspex. Important religious figure. They became very politicized, by the way, and I know I'm getting off topic a little bit, but what's really funny, in the later Republic, when the political factions got really kind of messed up, they realized how powerful the Haruspec's position was, and they started getting their guys into Haruspecs. And then anytime their political opponents would try to hold a vote, they would get everybody into the city, and they would have their Haruspecs that was in their pocket run out and go, nope, today's a bad day to vote, can't vote today, and everybody would have to go home. And people didn't want to have to keep coming into the city and out of the city, so they could delay their opponents' political agendas by weaponizing auspices. Pretty cool stuff. Honestly, your family wouldn't be surprised if I yelled out something like that at a wedding. You could just bring your own goat. Yeah, chickens. I'd love to see the system they had for that. You would throw food down, and then Haruspecs would watch the chickens eat, and it would based on the way that they ate and the pattern that they took as they were eating, they could tell the future. If a chicken eats a good pile, no, it was the pattern and the way that they grouped. Fun story about sacred chickens. You never thought you were going to have that segue tonight, did you? Fun story about sacred chickens. So here's how it works. There was the story of this Roman general who was going out to fight this battle. And they were in a naval flotilla. And they're going out to fight the bad guys. And he goes to the Haruspecs and he's like, okay, go look at the chickens and see what the chickens think about our upcoming chances in the battle. And the Haruspecs goes and watches the chickens eat, and he goes, we should not have this battle. And the general got really, well, I guess technically he'd be an admiral if he's in charge of ships. Admiral got really mad and threw the sacred chickens overboard. And then he lost the battle and died. So there's the story. Don't throw the sacred chickens overboard. If you went to the future and killed the future, would that be a murder or a suicide? Oh, if you went to the future and killed the future you, would that be a murder or a suicide? Neither, because that person might not even exist. Do mess with the chickens. Chickens are mean. Don't mess with the chickens. Trust the chickens. Go with the chickens. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how Western astrology got to us. How did our ideas come from these different kind of disparate groups and end up with us? And this is sort of a timeline of astrology. It goes a little bit faster than the stuff that we've been talking about, so I know that we're coming up on time, so I'm not going to keep you all too terribly much longer. But again, our version of astronomy and astrology started way back in Mesopotamia. And we know that it started even before the Sumerians, because by the time the Sumerians were writing stuff down, they had reams and reams and reams of astrology stuff. So this is clearly not something that they were coming up with on the spot. They were recording information, and they were recording cultural elements and history that they had going way back in time. And we can back this up by looking at the stone monuments that we discussed, the paintings that we talked about that are super old. Clearly, human beings have been looking at the sky for a really, really long time. Hannibal or Caesar? It depends on which Caesar. If you're talking about Julius Caesar was a better tactician. Hannibal was a better politician. Hannibal didn't end up getting killed for dumb political reasons like trying to grab all of the power and believe that his ego was just going to protect him. Caesar didn't have to accept a dictator for life, nor did he have to ask for a dictator for life. That's just my opinion. But if you put him head-to-head in a battle, Julius Caesar would outflank Hannibal and beat him pretty easily. Even if Hannibal had elephants. Elephants were like the nuclear weapons of the ancient world. So, Sumerian traditions, they show up in Babylonian texts. What about Babylonians? So, the Babylonians are going to standardize a lot of the earlier traditional stuff. They're going to sort of codify it, put things in an organized set. They're going to be the ones that standardize calendars. They're going to be the ones that name most of the constellations. They're going to be the ones that start working on predicting things, especially using predictive sort of early versions of algorithms to figure out when solar and lunar cycles are going to happen. And after the Babylonians fall and the Kassites take over, the Kassites are actually going to be the ones responsible for writing most of this stuff down. And that's true for a lot of the literary things as well. So the Enuma Anu Enlil that we have, that was written down actually during the Kassite period of Babylon and recorded, just like the Epic of Gilgamesh. So these Kassites are pretty important. They preserve a lot of the text that we have today, and they allowed that knowledge to pass into other cultures through their trade. And it's going to get to a lot of different people. This Babylonian version of astrology and astronomy is going to get over into Asia. It's going to get all over in Iran. It's going to pop up over in China. The Chinese are going to blend a little bit of the Babylonian standardization with their already advanced stuff. That's a little bit more towards the Eastern philosophy school of astrology, though. It also gets down into India. A lot of the early Vedic writing and stuff like that has sort of evidenced that evidence, not evidenced. What was evidenced? Has evidence of linking back to Babylonian stuff. And it's also going to get into Persia. So Persia, as we have been discussing on Thursday nights, super big, super powerful, all about some star stuff. Remember Zoroastrianism? They have a really big astrology bent. They're all about some stars and some sun and some moon stuff. And when Persia takes over Babylon, they are going to also preserve this astrology. They're going to begin to expand their version of astrology over into Greece and down into Egypt. And these two cultures are going to be very important. The Egyptians are going to add a little bit of their own flavor, but the Greeks are going to take on a lot of this stuff too. So when the astrological sort of schools get down into Egypt, the Egyptians are going to start adding some stuff that is going to make this version of astrology look a lot more like what we would consider today astrology, because the Egyptians are going to start working on horoscopes. And I do mean this as a much more formalized horoscope, not like this period of your life is going to be beneficial, but like, what's going on today? Is today going to be a good day or a bad day? Can I make this decision today or should I wait till later? The sort of day-to-day, is this up or down sort of horoscope. And we have evidence of that I can show you. And it comes from the star chart stuff that goes all the way back in time, but it gets a little bit more complicated with stuff like this guy. This is from the ceiling of a tomb of a guy named Senenmut. And what we see in this particular diagram, I know it looks kind of funky and it's a little complicated, but up here we see individual constellations. We have some interpretation of those here. But down here we have these weird little spirally things that actually represent the Earth in 3D globe model. So these people understood the circumference and circular nature of the Earth, and they started applying star charts to stuff like, is this above you, or is this below you, or is this in this quadrant of the sky or that quadrant of the sky? So what we have is this concept of figuring out where the stars are in relation to you at any given time and how that is going to potentially affect your life. Is this going to be a good day or a bad day? Does horoscope derive from horoscope? Oh, like Horus, the god Horus. No. That's spelled with a U, Horus, Horus. And the borders are stars too? Yeah, absolutely. I'm losing my brain here for a second. So the word horoscope, as we know it, comes from Greek, and oros. I have to kind of like I have to type this out here. So like, aura is time, right? Like hour, and then you have I think it's either scopoi. Where's Ray at? When I need him. I think it's horoscopos, and literally the word horoscope means to view time. That's what I'm trying to get at, but I'm trying to be way too difficult and throw all these Greek words at you when I should just tell you what the word means. This is the way my brain operates sometimes. I should not default to the hardest. I should just tell you what it means. Horoscope means to view time, or time viewer. So there you are. But I mentioned the Greeks, and the Greeks get involved with this, and they bring their own little flavor to it. And the Greeks are going to take this even one step further, mostly with a guy named Alexander. We haven't talked about Alexander the Great yet, but when Alexander the Great conquers basically all of the ancient world, he's going to push the Greek version of things. He's also going to push Greek astrology. And this is really where we sort of get on this idea of Greek constellations. They're going to take the Babylonian constellations and they're going to add their constellations and sort of rename some of the Babylonian ones to make them the good old-fashioned zodiac. And they're going to create really, really neat things like this. Now, I know this doesn't look very fancy, but when I tell you what this is, I hope that it impresses you. So, some archaeologists were digging in Croatia, and they found this particular little fragment of ivory, and it had a crab on it, and it's shaped a bit weird, and they're like, why is there just a crab on this little tile? So they kept digging, and they started finding other little pieces, like maybe this guy. This is perhaps, Aquarius, and we have little pieces over here that are Pisces, and this is a Sagittarius. And based on the curvature of these tiles, what they actually discovered was a very old Croatian. Well, I mean, it's using the Greek style, and it actually came from Egypt, but they found it in Croatia. This is a zodiac board that you would use to determine your horoscope on any given day. And you would sort of twist this around. It would have likely had some sort of internal disc that sat inside of it that also had particular markers, maybe the sun, the moon, and the planets. And you would kind of move these interchangeably like this. How old is it? That's a great question. This is about 2,500 years old, which is really friggin' far back in time. It probably came from around the 3rd or 4th century BC. But again, it tells us the story because the ivory came from Egypt, but it was built in a Greek style, and they found it in Croatia. So what we're seeing here is the influence of all of these ideas moving around all over the ancient Greek world around the same time that Alexander is beating the mess out of everybody and spreading the Greek culture to all of the ancient world. So I thought that was a really cool find. There are a few other pieces, and they're trying to piece this whole thing together, but the tiles are very, very thin. So it's unlikely that all of them survived in time being buried. But the story of how they dug all that stuff up is really interesting. So if you Google Croatian starboard, you'll be able to find some articles about it. So Alexander spreads everything everywhere, but Greek doesn't last forever. The Romans take them over. And the Romans are going to be super big. We've already talked about how superstitious they are. They're going to take this horoscope thing really seriously, especially the emperors. when Rome was starting to fall apart, the emperors are going to get real big on the whole astrology thing. The puppy is here. Hello, puppy. Would you like to come see me? Oh, we might be getting a free puppy sighting. Would you like to come and see me? Come here. Oh, hello, Kaylee. Hello, give me some sugars. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. Hello. Did you just wake up from a nap? Oh, your little tail is waggling. Oh, my goodness. Oh, hello, Kaylee. Oh, so many sugars. What? What? Okay. Mission accomplished. I have been inundated by puppy slobber. Okay. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you want to come back up here and see me again? What is that noise? What? What? Use your words. Do you need to go outside? Do you need to go outside? No, you're just being a brat. Just wanting your time in the sun. You want to come and see me again? I think she wants to play. She's giving me the I would like to play face. You don't even have a toy. Where's your toy? Go get her toy. Now she's going to go get a toy. Go get a toy. I would apologize for the interruption, but I know that people love the dog more than they love me. And that's okay. The dog doesn't make sarcastic comments to you. It's a good doggy, Professor. She is not the worst dog ever. She's a mess and she's a handful, but she's not the worst dog ever. So we're talking about Roman emperors being big on predictions. Roman emperors were very big on predictions, and they liked having people on hand to make sure that they were always doing the right thing and following the right omens. In fact, by the time of the early empire, that position, the haruspex that I mentioned, had actually fallen out of favor because of how political it had become. And for about 80 or 100 years before the first emperor, and then about 50 years after the first emperor, there were no haruspices. But the Emperor Claudius was like, who's reading the omens? And they're like, man, ain't nobody reading the omens. And he's like, where's my haruspex? And they're like, man, we ain't had haruspex in like almost 150 years. And he's like, I ain't gonna do that. Bring me haruspex. So they actually bring back the position because these emperors are big about wanting to know the omens. Is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be a bad day? Is this going to be a good decision? Am I going to tick off the sacred chickens? You got to have somebody to read the chickens, man. You got to have somebody to read the chickens. This is also going to spread again over in the Persian world with Zoroastrianism. Once again, they are super big on cosmology, astrology, astronomy. They're all about some stars. They're all about watching the heavens and using their knowledge of the progression of the cycle of things to figure stuff out. I would note that a particular story that some people might be familiar with involves a particularly momentous occasion where an astrological sign shows up and a whole bunch of Zoroastrian priests go halfway across a continent to find a baby. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe I should just shut up and leave it alone. But I think some people may have gotten the reference there. Maybe I could throw one more hint out there and say that Zoroastrian priests are called magi. So Rome is going to carry on astrological practices. The Persians are going to carry on astrological practices. When the Western Roman Empire falls, the barbarians aren't going to be any different. The Eastern Roman Empire is still going to hang on to this. And then the Muslim Empire shows up. I got it from what you talked about last time. There we are. So the Islamic empires and the early caliphates that expand through the Near East and Africa and Europe and Asia. Wait, are chickens used for sacrifices or something? They are used to predict omens. I'm sure that if you killed one and looked at its entrails, you could predict some stuff. Usually you didn't kill the chickens. You killed the bigger animals like a goat. Something with a nice sized liver. You want to look at liver spots. Because I keep thinking they use chicken poop to read the fortune. No, not the chicken poop. The eating patterns. So, inside of Islam, astrology is technically illegal. But the nomadic Arab people, the Bedouin people that were natives of the Arabian Peninsula prior to Islam, were big on astrology. If you're in the middle of the desert and it's nighttime, how are you going to navigate yourself? Because it's usually too hot to travel during the day, so you travel at night. How do you navigate during the night? You use stars. And there was already a tradition of using this for navigation inside the Arab world. So when Islam came around, people just sort of rolled it all in. And it became a practical application for other reasons too, because for those of you that might be familiar with the religion of Islam, you are supposed to pray in the direction of Mecca. So how do you locate yourself on the globe to properly know where you are facing? How do you orient yourself to make sure that you're pointing at Mecca? Well, you use geopositioning, and you do that by looking at the heavens. So you figure out your location based on star charts and stuff. So even though it was technically illegal, you still had a lot of people following astrological practices inside of Islam. They weren't really big on the imagery, though. So the constellations sort of became a little bit more of a name-based thing. You don't see lots of star pictures. You don't see lots of pictures of little Sagittarius guys or Pisces fish. You see lots of math. And the math that the Islamic world adds to astrology is going to be one of the biggest catalysts that springboards us to the study of astronomy. And the ideas that a lot of people in the Enlightenment pick up on are coming out of the Islamic world. That's a thing that a lot of people in Western history don't like to admit. But a lot of the documents that the Enlightenment was based on, all of these Greek and Roman classics, they weren't preserved in Rome. Those things came from Baghdad, because the Muslim scholars were copying them and preserving a lot of them when those things had been lost in the Western world. Did they use instruments to measure the stars or muscle memory? So originally, if we're just talking about desert nomads, it would have been just sort of your innate muscle memory, your knowledge, being able to look up and go, here I am, I need to go that way, I need to go this way. Of course, later on, we're going to develop things like sextants and astrolabes and things like that. Need to head off, but I'll check the rest of the episode tomorrow. Good to see you, Grethar. Have a good one. Hope everything's going well with you. Get a good sleep. See you next time. So this leads us up to good old-fashioned Christian Europe. And for the medieval period, astrology and astronomy are still the same thing. And the church really doesn't have a problem with most astrological stuff. Now, there are some people that don't like the idea of the stars being in charge of things, this concept of astrological determinism, that the stars determine your fate. Well, that seems to go against Jesus, so we can't really teach that. But the idea that there are progressions of stuff and that signs can be determined and that omens can be found, that's still very much in medieval Christianity. Christianity doesn't really jettison a lot of these practices until, again, the scientific revolution. So it's not really until the 13, 14, 1500s that the branches of astronomy and astrology start sort of dividing in our Western culture. And of course, by the time we get to the Enlightenment, it has very firmly divorced itself from each other, and they are effectively different fields now. So there's astrology for you. I hope that was everything that you wanted and more. I hope that it was entertaining and interesting. I had a pretty good time putting it together. I like showing some of these really old things that I got to dig up and look at. It was a bit like a scavenger hunt for me, so that was pretty neat. Once I figured out the angle that I was going to take and got on board, it was pretty fun. So it was a good viewer request stream. That was hecka cool. Much appreciated. So, a few things to remember. First off, Thursday, we are going to be back here at our regularly scheduled adventure in history time, 7 p.m. Central Standard, and we're talking about a lot of the ideas that came out of China. We talked a lot about politics last time in China, but I really do want to talk about the philosophy of China, because the period of time that we're covering, this 500 to 200 sort of range, is the basis of modern Chinese thought. And a lot of the ideas that came out of this period are going to affect not only China, but also Korea and Japan, as those cultures very much relied upon China as cultural. You put something in Discord related to today's lecture. I will give it a check as soon as we're over. I should mention the Discord. For those of you that don't know or might need a reminder, we have a Discord. Boom. I've been trying to be more active in that. I like the idea of being able to have a community offline where we can chit chat and support each other and talk about stuff and share ideas. If you have any ideas about what you would like to see on Discord, let me know. I'm a very open individual. I feel like I'm pretty easy to talk to. So let me know if you want to do some stuff. If you have an idea about a channel that you'd want to add, let me know. I like the idea of being able to hang out with people in a broader sense, not just in a couple of hours or a couple of days a night, a couple of days a week. So Thursday, Chinese philosophy. I think it's going to be fascinating. We get to talk about all sorts of really cool ideas. Next Tuesday, we are going to have a night off. That's right. I'm taking a Tuesday off for the first time in about 2.5 months. It is my birthday next Tuesday, and I really need to get back to trying to do only every other Tuesday. I need a little bit more of a breather. Life is catching up to me pretty fast. I do enjoy being with you all and hanging out. It's not anything. It's not you, it's me. I know this is like a bad breakup, but we're not even really breaking up because I'm still going to be here every Thursday. But we're going to go to every other Tuesday, which is sort of the idea. And our next viewer request episode is going to be, what is that, the 13th? October 13th? Well, tentatively scheduled for the 13th. And it's going to be the history of cheese. So that'll be fun and interesting. Happy early birthday. Well, thank you very much. And I've also got another thing, and I might hold on to it. It's not the right time. So, all right. That being said, I'm kind of done with my side, and I'm just sort of riffing now. Anybody have any questions or comments or points you want to redeem or stuff you want to do? Now is the time, my friends. And I'm going to go look to see who might be around for us to raid. Oh, the raid. Who's around to raid? Oh, I see who we're going to raid. Thank you, Adventure Rin. That was really cool. I got info out of that I was looking for. You have much knowledge. Oh, don't think that all of this was in my head. I had to do some research for this one. I did not recall all of this just like blah, 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 out of my head. It was not that at all. So I will not claim all of that. Okie doke. So we're going to go raid redeemed random history fact, weird Roman practices. Oh, I have so many of these. Oh, I love them. Cassidy is here. Oh, I was about to go raid you. Yeah, I'm wrapping up. We talked about astrology, and I'm kind of done. I'm about to talk a little bit about some weird Roman practices. I mean, if people want to start redeeming points, there's a little bit more content out there to have. But yeah, I'm kind of on the tail end, on the downside. But I mean, you're welcome to raid on in, and I'll spitball and riff, and we'll talk a little bit if you want to, or you can hang around and I'll go raid you. It's up to you. My system isn't raiding you. Oh, that's unfortunate. So I'll hold off on the random history fact until our friends come in. How's everybody doing? Tell me how you're doing. What's your day? What's the world doing for you? I'll take a sip of water. You're being eaten by mosquitoes. That's never good. We have mosquitoes here. I have a mosquito bite on the backside of my knee right now that's just absolutely annoying. It's a thing with Twitch lately. Some raids do the thing, but don't show it. Yeah, okay, so earlier today, we got a raid from my friend Bubble World Comics, and he came in, and the raid came in, and my little announcement said, you're being raided by Bubble World Comics, but it didn't play my my little stream box thing. Mosquitoes literally suck. I agree. So you have to end stream. Dude, did it raid? What is did it raid? I didn't see a raid notification, Cassie. Is everybody here? Hey, hey people, hey friends. I don't know. I did not see an element for. I can play my little raid notification if you want me to. Okay, so everybody's here, but it didn't actually do the raid notification. Oh, Twitch. Welcome, friends. My name is Shane McInnes. I do history streams. We goof off. We talk about nerd stuff. Nerd topics covered tonight. Let's see. I made a reference to Moon Knight from Marvel Comics. I made a reference to... I don't know. What all did we talk about? Oh, the Adventure Hat has been summoned. Okay, so let me play my stream thing here to let everybody show up for the raid. I don't want to cheat anybody out of the raid notification. For those of you that don't know, let me do this while I'm trying to fiddle around here. Cassidy Austin Art just started streaming not too terribly long ago. Oil painter, does a lot of stuff that has some really great inspiration from Renaissance kind of things. Very chill stream, plays good music, does good chat, has been around the world and seen things. Go check out her channel, give her the follows, do all of the fun stuff. Here's the raid notification. It'll say that I'm raiding, but this was for you. Is this not why you are here? Are you not entertained? You're streaming from the pool, painting outside, so the mosquitoes are hungry. Oh, alas. Yeah, mosquitoes are bad. Okay, so the point of my channel is to talk about history and to talk about things in a way that is fun and approachable. I love history. I teach history for a living. I think that history doesn't have to be boring. Too many people had a boring experience with history, though. People had teachers that were that just didn't give a crap. I had a lot of history teachers that were coaches that would sit over in the corner and look at playbooks and tell us to change out the overhead. It just wasn't fun. But I also had really great history teachers that made big imprints on my life, and I like teaching. So I don't like to call these lectures. I like to call them conversations, and we goof off. And, you're welcome to hang out. I have a Discord if you want to join that. And I've got two things that have been redeemed. So below me, I have a whole bunch. Well, not below me, below you and your little chat window. Is it over here? No, I feel like the guys from Night at the Roxbury. Over there. It's over there. Yes, over there. Okay. So below your chat window, there's a little picture of the Adventure Hat, which is this guy. This is the Adventure Hat. I bring it with me to the field when I go do archaeology and history stuff because I don't tan, I burn, and I need things to cover my ears. So you can summon the Adventure Hat, and I will tell a story. One of the things that my wife did before you all showed up, or maybe when you got here, was ask about a random history fact. So a random history fact about weird Roman things. So I actually have several of these, and because we have new friends, and I kind of want to give everybody a little bit of a taste of what the show is like, I'll share a couple. So, weird Roman practices. Romans believed that hyenas did not have a gender, that they could switch back and forth between being male and female. So, if you were a guy and you were having trouble with the ladies, what you could do was kill a hyena and get its anus and wash it out and wear it as a bracelet on your left arm. And this was basically supposed to make you absolutely unstoppably attractive for the ladies. So there's a weird Roman practice for you. To try to do one that's not so gross, if your baby was having trouble sleeping at night and was crying a lot, it might be that evil spirits are attacking the baby. And nobody wants evil spirits to attack your baby. So the right way to dissuade these evil spirits from attacking your baby would be to make a necklace out of dolphin teeth and drape the necklace around the baby's neck before the baby went to bed. And this would ward off all of the bad spirits. So there's some weird facts about Roman history, and I gave you a little bit of a double dip there. And Bubble World Comics, who rated in earlier, redeemed an adventure hat story. So I get to put on the adventure hat, and I get to talk about some place that I've been. And he asked specifically for a weird place in Mississippi that I have been. And I've been to a lot of places in Mississippi. I am from Mississippi. Bubble World Comics also from the state of Mississippi. I hope that I can redeem a little bit of the public image of Mississippi. Not everybody here is what you think about when you think about Mississippi. There are level-headed, very nice people here. And yes, there we are. My current emote is the adventure hat. Dun, 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 dun. I've got another one on the way, by the way. I had hoped that it would be approved by the stream tonight, but Twitch is dragging their feet and did not approve it. The hyena bit would explain a weird bit of anime shenanigans that you've seen. Quite possibly. He asked for an interesting place in Mississippi. Everywhere in Mississippi is weird. So one of my favorite places in Mississippi that I've been to is out in a kind of middle of nowhere place outside of the city of Natchez. And there used to be a big antebellum house that was a kind of an inn, and it was on the Natchez Trace, and it was called Windsor. And the name of the building was Windsor. And it burned down back in the post-Civil War period in the 1800s. But the pillars and part of the like the brick base of the building, so like the brick foundation, are still there. And you can actually, if you know where to go, you can go out and see all of these giant pillars for this building that would have been they're 2-story tall. They're on top of these big brick plinths. The building itself would have ended up being probably 50 foot tall. Really, really cool stuff. So if you want to, you can Google Windsor Ruins in Mississippi and give it a check out. One of my favorite little off-the-wall, tucked in the corners of Mississippi pieces of history. Fun thing about Windsor, it had these really big cast iron steps that led up to the front door. And the steps survived the fire. And they got put on a truck and were transported over to a local college called Alcorn University. And they are still there. They are the steps leading up to one of their administrative buildings. So the Steps of Windsor are still around, and you can still go see them today on Alcorn's campus. Really cool stuff. Lots of cool stuff here in Mississippi. I like hanging around. I travel around here when I can't go to places like Turkey and Jordan and Greece and France and Italy, because they can't do nothing because of the COVIDs. But so there's an adventure hat story. I also have a couple of other items. I have the opinion hat. And if you ever wanted to hear my opinion on a particular topic, you can summon the opinion hat. It makes me look very opinionated, as you can tell. If that doesn't make you look opinionated, I don't know what does. So the next emote, by the way, is me wearing the opinion hat doing like this as if I'm thinking. So prepare for that one coming very soon. You belong to the second oldest Masonic lodge continuously used as a lodge in Mississippi, built in the 1850s and moved a couple of miles down the road a few years later by wagon, pieces by piece, and put together. Can't wait for that emote. It's coming. It'll probably be here by Thursday, but Twitch again is dragging their feet, so I don't really know when it'll be here. Coming soon to a Twitch channel near you. And I also have these guys. These are clearly what I call hipster goofball glasses. They don't have any lenses in them. These are the well actually glasses, because I have discovered that I am Oscar from The Office and I'm the well actually guy. So if information in the chat pops up and it's slightly wrong, I don these and go, well actually, and then explain it as if I'm waving the little glasses at the person. It's meant to be lighthearted and goofy. So there's that. When I unlock another emote, those will probably be an emote too. I have the puppy. You all missed the puppy earlier. The puppy shows up on stream sometimes. You can summon the puppy. There are lots of little things down there to goof off with and have fun with. So you forgot about the well actually glasses. All right, so that's a little bit about me. I hope you all had a good stream. Cassidy, if you have, by the way, if you have social media that you want to share in the chat, if you have a picture of what you were working on, please do so. In the mix-up, I forgot to be a good host. Thank you for the raid. I'm sorry that it didn't go off and you didn't get the proper notification. I hope you had a good stream, other than the mosquitoes. And please feel free to share stuff. Well, actually, it's all in good fun. So I think that's all for me, unless anybody wants to redeem any other points or do anything or have any questions or comments. Thanks for coming by. Hope everybody had a good night. I think we're going to go raid friend of the channel and overall amazing artist, friend Cat Videos. In 1853, absolutely nothing happened in my town, and we continue that tradition today. There was probably a lot of time in Mississippi history where there wasn't a lot going on. Yeah, share whatever. Any links you got, any art stuffs you got. If you've got Discord, if you've got whatever, as long as it's like, whatever. I don't have anything blocked in the chat. Usually people are super chill about it. There we go. Go click on Cassidy's Instagram. Give her a follow. Also, follow her Twitch channel. She does great artwork. Really cool person. She gets 2 thumbs up. Also, Bubble World Comics rated in earlier. Go follow his stuff. Make sure you go check out next time he streams. Writes in hieroglyphics. How cool is that? Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So I think we is going to go do a raid. I think we is going to go raid the Cat Videos. So let me get this all set up. So if you want to come back on Thursday night, we'll be talking about Chinese philosophy. We start at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We usually run about an hour. At 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Ooh, I got to hit the mute on that. So I'm double talking myself. That's annoying. be talking about Chinese philosophy stuff. We start at 7. We usually run about an hour and a half. I talk a lot, so we run over all the time. But I think it's all in good fun. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to hit the button here. We're going to start this raid up. Please hang around. Give Cat lots of love. Our battle cry, as always, is adventure, with all of the big fancy adventure hats that you can manage. Thank you all for coming by. I really appreciate it. The highlight of my week is getting to hang out with you all. It's good stuff. And I'll see you on Thursday. Have a good one. Oh, Rootkin hits the follow button. Dun, 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 dun. Thanks for the follow, Rootkin. Hope to see you next time. All right, sorry. See you, everybody. Y'all have a good one.